At this point, I would like to turn the evening over to Fiona Shapiro and Nancy Singham, who are leaders in this education project. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I'm gonna start. We're really happy to welcome everybody to this presentation, Climate Hope from Knowledge to Action. Um, it was created to offer middle school teachers of any subject both training in how climate change can be taught to students, along with a vast collection of materials, lessons, and support so that teachers can feel confident in teaching this critical topic to New Mexico students. My name is Nancy Singham. I have a master's degree in early childhood education from UNM. I was the first APS kindergarten teacher at Cortez Elementary School in 1975. And after retiring from teaching 9 years ago, I moved back to New Mexico and I've been an organizer for 350 New Mexico. Fiona?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Fiona Shapiro. I'm an environmental educator and environmental education instructional coordinator at a place called the Sandia Mountain Natural History Center. And we're part of the New Mexico Museum of Natural History and Science, who I'm an employee of. We're owned by Albuquerque Public Schools, and I do primarily fifth grade programs about ecology and the ecosystem in the mountains, as well as all around the state. And I have a bachelor's degree in environmental studies. I've worked in the past in wildlife field biology and in environmental education and as a national park ranger. And then I joined the 350 New Mexico Climate Education Committee. And we are here tonight to bring into to introduce you to the Climate Hope curriculum. Climate Hope from Knowledge to Action is its full title. It's a middle school curriculum that we've been developing for the past few years or so. And Nancy is going to give you a little history of that in a moment. But we are excited to share it with you. And this was the work of many people over the last about 4 years and that have been part of our committee and partnered with us as well. So let me go to the next slide. And this slide this QR code is for actual middle school teachers. So I saw some of you are involved in education. I didn't get a chance to read everything in the chat just yet, but I would love it. We would love it if any of you who are educators who teach middle schoolers in a classroom who would like to get this curriculum. We just want to let you know right up front, if you're hearing all about it tonight, how can you actually get a hold of it? How can you actually use it with your students? So you can scan that QR code, or Steffi is repeatedly putting in the chat for us the link to the teacher registration or teacher interest form. So what this will do is we'll ask some information about you and your familiarity with teaching climate change, and we'll be able to actually send you our entire curriculum, everything that we'll go over tonight and all the extended resources as well. You'll be able to use in your classroom if you are interested in teaching that this year. If you're not a middle school teacher, we ask that you do refrain from filling out this form. You can always email us directly, and we'll give our email addresses later. But this is for teachers who would like to use the actual curriculum. And if you are interested in a future teacher workshop, we are hoping to do more of those in the future. You can also mark that on the form. Go ahead, Nancy.
All right. So we have a lot to cover tonight, and we're going to keep moving. The 350 New Mexico Education Group started 3 years ago with a request from Stephanie Hanamato, who was a science teacher from Las Cruces. She challenged us to do something for teachers. So we formed a loose collection of educators who began by trying to identify a need to support teachers who want to teach about climate change, but who have received little or no training on this topic. If any of the teachers, I know there's some people from that original group here, please identify yourselves and we'll acknowledge you later on again. I guess, Fiona, why don't you go to the next slide, because I think we have just to sort of narrate where we went from that initial decision. After months of creating the guidelines that we scrolled at the beginning and doing lots of research, we developed a basic curriculum slide deck with supplemental materials. And as you can see in these photos, we tested these lessons ourselves going into 5 different middle schools in Albuquerque. And then based on those experiences, and you know how much learning went on there, we revised and expanded our program. And last spring, we began partnering with the group Talking Talents Youth Leadership. So in June of 2024, this past June, we held our first teacher workshop. And we're currently evaluating with teachers who attended the workshop, looking for funding to conduct more workshops, both in Albuquerque and hopefully in northern New Mexico as well. So I'd like to just introduce a little video here with the history. I mentioned that 350 New Mexico partnered in this spring with Talking Talents Youth Leadership. Many of you have probably heard of this group, founded in 1988. It's had a 30-year history serving Albuquerque and the East Mountains communities through outdoor and environmental education and youth leadership programs. In April of 2022, the Talking Talents Board committed to shifting to a stronger focus on climate change, specifically setting a goal to build a longitudinal program model for 5th grade through high school students and beyond to find, support, and mentor young leaders who will engage in the fight against climate change. Don't know if John Ross is here, but just to acknowledge him as the Executive Director of Talking Talents Youth Leadership. We're very pleased to share this video with you, which was created by Amy Mathis, who's an instructor for Talking Talents. It's Amy's voice that you're going to hear at the beginning. It features the work of Roosevelt Middle School teacher Lisa Vargas, who attended our first Climate Hope training session in June. You'll see some of the informational posters that her students have created as a result of their work with Climate Hope, and you'll also hear from a couple of students directly. So enjoy. Oh, there we go.
Okay, now you can see it.
Hi, my name is Amy, and I am a climate educator with Talking Talents Youth Leadership. We have been collaborating with 350 New Mexico and Sandia Mountain Natural History Center to get the word out about our middle school curriculum called Climate Hope: From Knowledge to Action. These lesson plans focus on climate change issues and activism for youth that can be brought directly into the classroom setting. Students will learn the basics of climate change, what is currently happening right here in our home state of New Mexico, and play some educational group games that demonstrate climate injustice and examine ways to get off of fossil fuels for good. Students will be empowered to become an active member to stand up for the fight of climate change recognition and action. In June of 2024, we held our first teacher training summit to inform and guide middle school teachers who wish to adopt this curriculum for their classes. We would like to share with you one teacher's perspective and some of her students who shared their thoughts on this wonderful program. We think this curriculum is an important and necessary addition in our public schools, and we hope you do too.
Hi, I'm Lisa Vargas from Roosevelt Middle School. I teach an eco leadership class here at the school because our school is becoming a global leadership magnet school. And I've used the Climate Hope curriculum a lot this year to help our students think about climate change, number one, and focus more locally with New Mexico's climate change. We learned a lot from the curriculum, especially in regards to fracking and the gases released. We also focus mostly here about wildfires because that affects our community most locally since we're here in the mountains of New Mexico. And so we have really been focusing on wildfires and solutions to that. And I like the curriculum because it doesn't make climate change too scary for students. It makes it more solutions-based than just like fear-based. And I think that's really important. And it also provides a lot of answers for questions that students tend to have. about climate change that maybe they've heard at home from their parents and things like that. So even if you're not an expert on climate change, you can still successfully teach kids about the issue.
Hi, I'm Anna, and I'm an 8th grader at Roosevelt Middle School. I knew climate change existed before, but I didn't know any of the details. This class helped me understand climate change a lot more. It has also made me more cautious about my actions. The most worrying thing to me was all the CO2 emissions and how much damage it's causing to the planet. Also, how many people are not willing to make the switch to renewable energy.
Hi, I'm Aaliyah. I'm an 8th grader at Roosevelt Middle School in the mountains. This is what I learned from the climate change hope lesson. So I learned that climate change is a huge impact, or has a huge impact around the world. And the lesson, I didn't really know as much as I do now. I learned that ever since the climate change, the world has been different for a long time, and that it just keeps getting worse.
All right. More technical difficulties. My screen is frozen. Hold on. Nancy, feel free to keep talking and I'll get the slideshow back in a moment.
I have to say it's really great to see a teacher using the curriculum that we developed in a really positive way. So I love watching that because it just feels so great. Maybe, Fiona, what I'll do is I'll just sort of slide into the first lesson and we can come back to the curriculum tenets once you get that.
Okay, let me just add the, I was going to make a short discussion of the intro slideshow, I believe. So sorry, my computer is being wonky, but basically, hopefully a lot of you saw the intro slideshow as you were coming into the Zoom tonight. So those are some of the major tenets of our program. Things like having it New Mexico student focused, which I think is the screen we're frozen on now, as well as aligned to curriculum. So a couple that I really wanted to highlight right now are that we do align all of the lessons to Next Generation Science Standards, NGSS, which is also known as New Mexico STEM Ready Standards. So it's the newer science standards that include climate change, but we go well beyond actual climate change standards within our lessons. And we also have aligned them to Common Core standards for math, social studies and civics, English and language arts, as well as social studies. And then we include elements of some of the specials curriculums as well. So we try to make it as multidisciplinary as we can, as you'll hopefully see as we talk more about it.
Exactly. Some of those other tenets, just by the way, we set out to make a curriculum that was grounded in science, multidisciplinary, emphasize climate justice, really engage students in participation, took into account the emotional impact of this work, and last but not at all least, empowering students. And we'll get into all of that as we look at the lesson, which we're going to go to now, hopefully. While you're trying to get that working, I sort of would invite, I can see there are a lot of people with educators here, and I'd just like to invite you to think for a minute. If you were wanting to teach some middle school students about climate change in a way that would both inform them and engage them into action, where would you start? What would you include? Would you start with the physics and CO2 graphs, or perhaps with some kind of dystopian visions of a warmer future, or maybe about policy arguments about oil and gas exploration? We spent a lot of time, as you can imagine, discussing where to start. And after a lot of debate and trial and error, we finally decided that the place to start is with basically what the students themselves can see and experience and know about already. they can relate to in their own personal experience. So we called this lesson, right on schedule, Climate Weirding Impacts in New Mexico and Beyond. And so this first lesson starts with a focus on the impacts of climate change in New Mexico. Yeah. So starting, we wanted to pose this as not a one and done, you learn something in school and then you move on to the next unit. We really wanted people to grasp that this is a real world problem that will be with students for the rest of their lives. And starting with things that they can personally observe and take action on. So in small groups, the first thing that we do is we divide them into small groups and ask them these two questions. What have you heard about climate change? And what questions do you have about it? So after they discuss this and bring it back to the whole class discussion, they make a list of questions, things they know, things that they want answers for in the subsequent lessons, and we go from there. Next thing we do is to do a video sharing exercise. With that introduction, the class divides into groups and watch short videos of people sharing their own personal stories, things that have happened to them relating to climate change. And each group watches a small video, a storytelling video about this, and then each group discusses the video that they watched with the questions that you see on the screen. So how were people affected? How was the environment affected? How did it make you feel? Do you have questions after watching this? As you can see, we're trying to get students to connect with this problem before we answer a lot of scientific questions. One video that we have, and I don't know, Fiona, maybe you can go to the next slide. We share a wide range of videos, but one that is really an excellent one is listed at the top of the screen here. It's called Burned, A Story of Resilience. Unfortunately, if we tried to show all these videos tonight, we would be here till midnight, but I've asked Steffi to place a link in the chat for this video. It's a 6-minute video that is extremely moving video that shows quite a bit about the fires that were in 2022 here in New Mexico, the Calf Canyon fires. It shows pictures of the fires and the burns and the flooded landscapes, but it also, the victims share their own personal stories of their losses of everything from their home to water to their entire life's work. So as you can see on the screen afterwards, they watch the video. Each student group answers these 3 questions, starting with what happened at the event, the personal effects on the victims' lives, and then gauging the student reactions. It's one thing to see a picture of a fire on a news story. It's another thing when people are telling their stories about how it affected them. And this is really what we were trying to get across in all of these videos. And then what they do is they share with the rest of the class the things that they learned from the video that they viewed. So I hope you will have a chance to go ahead and look at this video after the presentation tonight, because it really is something that's really great to see. After that, and we can go on to the next slide, we answer this question. We've moved from the experience and we're going into the science now. What major impacts is climate change having in New Mexico? So we show a whole series of slides showing in graphs and photos, rising temperatures, excessive heat, fires and flooding, the aridification, we introduced that word and that idea, the health impacts of climate change here in New Mexico, agricultural impacts, and the impacts on animals, which is a very attractive thing to hear about for middle school students. It's something that they really empathize with, the effects on animals. So we're almost at the end of the first lesson, but before we do that, I want to make one more point, and that is our interest in addressing the social and emotional needs resources. I think a better heading for that would be something that I took from the Generation Dread website. It says, their advice to teachers is, you can't just teach kids the facts about the climate crisis and leave it at that. And that pretty much summarizes the concept here. Many of you on this call tonight know from your own experience, dealing with this can take its emotional toll. So in the training workshop, we taught and we shared materials with teachers to help them support students in dealing with the stress and anxiety that comes with this topic. In the last few years, we are really fortunate to have had a number of people and groups having created really valuable guidelines along these lines. And you see them listed here. And Steffi, that's your cue. We've also posted these in the chat so that if you want to explore these further, I strongly encourage you to do so. As I said, not just for the students' sake, but for your own. Just see some of these resources. And throughout this whole curriculum, we are always aware of this, listening to this, paying attention to this, and taking the guideposts that these great psychologists have outlined for us to help us with this work. So once we have sort of looked at what is happening to climate change and how it's affecting people in our state, then we move on to lesson number 2.
All right, so lesson number 2 of our 4 lessons is called The Causes of Climate Change and the Science Behind It. And interestingly, we originally had this as our first lesson topic. And one of the things we learned by piloting the program was that we thought that it made more sense to start with the impacts and the things that students could relate to in a more emotional way and actually see and understand before we got into the science behind it and why it's happening. They should actually care first. And I think with adults, that can be different sometimes, but I think a lot of us, even of any age, really want a reason to connect with something. And so we spent a long while trying to redevelop this lesson. Even from the very beginning of development, we found that it is a challenging topic to try to get down to a simple enough explanation for students, but also something that it makes sense to them and that we are able to cover enough of the important details of what is happening with our world and why it's happening. And we found that it is actually possible to do that, to get across those basic concepts of what caused human enhanced or human caused climate change, why it's happening, and cover it in a lesson in a way that students can understand. So this lesson goes over everything from what fossil fuels are, because that was also something we learned in our tests, that we had to start with, that level. The students didn't even know what a fossil fuel was necessarily. Where they come from is an important thing. What they're used for, of course, which isn't always understood by middle schoolers either. They don't always make that direct connection. And then, of course, how those fossil fuels contribute to climate change. So this is some of these slides, like this one is actually from the lesson itself. So here we're trying to introduce the students to the different types of fossil fuels, as well as wood, because it also releases carbon. And we start to show videos in this lesson from an organization called ACE, or Action for the Climate Emergency. They are a wonderful resource. They have a whole set of videos I am going to show a clip from one of them in a few minutes. And we did provide Steffi with the link to their website where you can view the whole series of videos, and they're amazing. They cover in animated form in 5 to 6 or so minutes each of the major topics related to climate change. And so we use those all throughout the curriculum. And one more thing, in the original video, I won't show the ACE video, is that it goes over the fossil fuels themselves, that they came from ancient ecosystems, that they're extracted from underground, all the different ways humans use them. So it covers a lot in that one video. And then we get into asking the kids themselves. Again, we want them to connect directly. So how do you use fossil fuels? How do you get to school? How do your family members get to their jobs? What do you cook on at night, or what does your family cook on to make dinner? What are all the different things you're doing in your life, that connect to using fossil fuels? And then from there, actually, sorry, one more thing I wanted to say about using fossil fuels is that that can actually be one of the activities in this lesson where students create and brainstorm, and they kind of create a map or a bubble chart brainstorming session with the whole class and try to come up with as many different ways of that they're using fossil fuels as they can, and connect with each other and really start to understand that big picture of what they're, all the different things that we're using them for all the time. And I'm going to show this video, which should work now. Let me know if it doesn't. Oh, maybe it won't, because it's giving me the error message again. Hold on. I have to share. Yeah. Okay, so this video, I'm just going to show you a little bit of it, but it actually is a longer video. And this one takes that first step of what fossil fuels are and what they're used for and all that, and goes into the next step of how all the CO2 from burning those fossil fuels actually contributes and causes climate change. So let's take a look at this one.
One of the main reasons we call this little planet home
I'm gonna skip ahead
is greenhouse gases. Each. But
given Earth a kind of
when the heat pass through, they trap it and send some of it back to Earth.
This is called the greenhouse effect. For billions of years, these gases have given Earth a kind of blanket that's kept it nice and warm.
They've made life possible. Thanks, guys.
But for us to continue to live here, that blanket can't get too thick.
Check out our next door neighbor, Venus. It's kind of balmy there. Like 880 degrees Fahrenheit on a good day.
Why? Because 97% of its atmosphere is made of CO2.
We've got this planet that's just right, with its nice light blanket. But wait, what's all this floating in? More CO2. And we know where that's coming from. Burning fossil fuels.
Check this out. Scientists have studied ice core samples going back 800,000 years and found that carbon dioxide and global temperatures go up together, they go down together. It makes sense. The more CO2, the stronger the greenhouse effect, the warmer our planet gets.
For this entire time, CO2 levels have never gone above 300 parts per million, or ppm. That is until now. Where's CO2 today? Whoa! Over 400 ppm for the first time in human existence.
Right here is where modern humans appeared on Earth. Right here is when we started burning fossil fuels.
You see how carbon dioxide levels are going through the roof? And they're still climbing. Compared to the last 800,000 years, we're now emitting CO2 100 times faster than ever measured before.
All right, so as I said, that video does go on, but unfortunately, we won't be able to watch the whole thing right now. So now that was really the end of me talking about lesson 2, which again was the science of climate change. Now I'm going to get into lesson 3, which is called Climate Solutions Are All Around Us. And this lesson really gets into that overall concept of our entire curriculum, which is about hope, climate hope. We've taught them the science, we've taught them all these horrible impacts that are happening in New Mexico and around the world. The teachers hopefully included some of those really good emotional resources for helping with emotions and things that come up when all this tough, heavy things, that are really tough for adults as well, are being taught. But now we're trying to get into the hopeful, the positive, the fact that we do have solutions already and that we'll continue to have more to come. if we're willing to embrace them. And that's Nancy and I teaching at our teacher workshop, our climate education workshop that we had this past summer with 14 middle school teachers. So here is one of the huge basic ideas at the beginning of this lesson is that what we need to do in order to curb climate change and fix the problem is stop using fossil fuels. So down, down, down as little as we can, releasing that CO2. Obviously, we can't stop all at once. We discussed that, the complexity of it, but that we need to reduce our fossil fuel usage and be more efficient as much as possible. But we can't stop there. Of course, at the very same time, we need to be building a more clean, renewable energy network from solar to wind to geothermal energy, hopefully in the coming years. And we need to be doing those things at the same time in order to really fix the problem as quickly and efficiently as we can. So we go over in this lesson the different types of renewable energy, solar, wind, and geothermal. And we talk about specifically in New Mexico, how usable are these? And as you can see on this slide from the lesson, we are actually ranked number 9 in wind energy potential throughout all of the all of the states in the country. And we'll have things for students to get used to reading maps and graphs and things like this. We'll have the students analyze this map and look at, what portions of the state do you think would be the most usable for more wind turbines and wind farms. And so you could talk about how the eastern side of the state primarily looks like it has the best wind energy potential. And then, of course, we go over the other renewable energies as well. Then this is another concept in this lesson that we definitely, as an education committee, had many revisions of how we were going to present this. It's a difficult concept, but basically what we're trying to get across to the students here is that there are kind of 2 basic ways of going about helping with climate change and the impacts that it creates. So the one is stopping the problem, which a lot of you who are involved in climate science or are familiar with climate change vocabulary may know that as mitigation. And that would be trying to stop it where it's at. So, and the other big way of working with issues caused by climate change is adapting to the problem. So as you can see here, we use the analogy of a boat that has a leak in it. And in that leaky boat, if you are going to adapt to the problem and you're trying to just deal with what your situation is right that moment, you're going to try to bail out the boat like that person in the picture is doing. You might call for help. You're going to try to paddle to land before you sink. Maybe you'll abandon the boat. And you're trying to do whatever you can to survive that situation, but you're not actually fixing the problem. You're not actually fixing that boat so you can keep using it. So stopping or mitigating the problem would involve patching the leak so that there's no water coming in anymore. And you can actually continue to use, hopefully, that same boat and do more of what it's intended to do with it. Obviously, where this relates to climate change is that with climate change, we can adapt to the problem. So example of adapting to climate change's impacts could be thinning forests, doing extra prescribed burns to try to reduce fire danger. But of course, then there's the risk of those prescribed burns themselves, as it's often hotter and drier all year round now. And then things like wearing masks during high smoke days or high ozone days to try to help our human health. So these are things that could help slow the issue. However, obviously, they're not going to stop climate change from happening. So the idea we really try to impart to students is that we need to do these things because we can't just sit here and accept that there's horrible storms happening and horrible fires happening and all these things and not do anything and not try to protect ourselves and our communities. But at the same time, we need to move into I don't have a slide for that, but we needed to move into those mitigation steps, those fixing the problem, stopping the problem, which of course comes back to reducing our CO2 and other greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere so that we can actually stop worsening the problem, and then also using the renewable energy so that we can get off of fossil fuels. And within this lesson, we have a game that we developed. It is based off of, I believe, a 350.org. So the larger organization 350 had created a game similar to this, and we created our own version using photos from New Mexico where we could, and really giving a lot of options. So basically it's a card game, and the students play it as a whole class. About half the cards, or less than half the cards actually, are the old ways, the current ways, the ones in blue at the top, where, you know, they are emitting carbon dioxide, they're using fossil fuels, they're not as efficient as they could be. And then the other cards, the blue and green ones, are possible solutions to those older ways or current ways. And the cool thing about this game is that it's not just like one card goes with one other card. It's not a direct matching game necessarily. It can be, because there's obvious choices, like, you know, instead of a wood burning stove, using an electric heater that's much more efficient or something like that. But there's also a lot of other options that the kids can come up with. So here is a picture from our teacher workshop of teachers actually playing this game. And now we have some of the cards. So here, let's say you were given the gas card, the gas car card. So you are driving just a regular gas vehicle. And on the back of each card is some information. So this one tells us that regular gas vehicles only use about 12 to 30% of the energy in the gas to power the car. So it's not only is it using gasoline, but it's also incredibly inefficient. And that electric vehicles use over 77% of their energy to actually power the car. So another kid comes up, or they're like, oh, I have the hybrid car. That's better, right? You know, let's put the hybrid car on top of that gas car. Let's replace it. And that's excellent, right? Because it's lower greenhouse but gas emissions, which means lower fossil fuel consumption. And it can be charged from renewable energy if you do have solar panels on your house. If not, it's still a lot more efficient. And it's even quieter and has less noise pollution, less air pollution, and a nicer thing to drive. But then let's say there's another kid and it's like, wait a minute, I think I could do better. They come up with their electric car card, you know, and they talk about, well, now you can have a fully electric car that's the most efficient that it can be. And it has the clean ester because it's not just a hybrid, it's not using any gas. And then you could have someone else come up and be like, well, why do we all need our own vehicles? You know, why do we need to be manufacturing separate individual vehicles for every person? Why can't we use an electric bus, or in this case, an electric school bus, to have us all transported in together and have a vehicle that is not using fossil fuels? So the idea here is you can build one on top of the other, and some cool facts on the electric bus are that they can be over 4 times more fuel efficient than gas buses. Every zero emission bus can eliminate 1,690 tons of CO2, which I can't really fathom that, but it sounds like a lot. And of course, they don't pollute the air. And then we have mystery cards in this game, which I think is the most fun part of it. And all those say on the back is, what will we think of next? So this is for kids to be either maybe doing research and looking into, like, what is the cutting edge technology? What are researchers at UNM looking into, or NMSU, or some other university or research facility, or Sandia Labs? Or what could we come up with in the future? Or what could you think of that might be a better replacement for our current ways? So that is that game. And I'm going to return it now back over to Nancy for our last lesson.
I don't know about you, but after 3 lessons, you can imagine how middle schoolers are feeling. But this is spread over a lot of time, and we've built in a lot of games and fun things to do and things to create and along the way, so that it doesn't get too overwhelming. Lesson 4 deals with students taking action on climate, but it begins with the all-important issue of climate justice. So actually, why don't you just go to the next card? Because we start out by just defining climate justice. It's needed when communities of people who contribute least to the problem of climate change are the ones most affected by its impacts. And I've been working on this slide presentation. I was listening to NPR this morning reporting on COP29, and I'll be gosh darned if they didn't state this exact issue of climate justice and report on a pretty dismal failure in failing to implement this concept at the level of COP. But it really showed to me that we were on the right track when we wanted to make this explicit for our students. The next thing we do after we work on these definitions is to talk about the Marshall Islands. So yes, we're outside of New Mexico now. We're in the ocean. But first thing we do here is we show a previous picture of a shot of the Marshall Islands, and there are literally seawalls around, and waves are lapping up almost to the edge of the homes. And we just ask students to look at these pictures of these islands as they exist today, and just talk about how students must be feeling, people must be feeling living in these homes where the slightest wave is going to wash some of these buildings away. And so it sort of defines the situation that they're facing right now. And then we show this climate activist from the Marshall Islands talking about the situation that the people on his islands are facing right now. So he goes through a description of 50-foot swells and increased diseases of dengue fever and malaria and the constant worry about what's going to happen. And then he says this as a direct quotation: "We have been told that if we want to stay on our islands, we'd have to adapt and elevate, with migration being the only plan B. We're having to deal with these issues that we in the first place did not create." And then he holds up his hands and he says, "And may I remind you, the Marshall Islands' contribution to climate change is only 0.0001% of the world's emissions." So we discuss with students how this must feel to these students who have done almost nothing to contribute to greenhouse gases in the entire history of their country, to be driven from their homes, from their islands, by the actions of others. And this really drives home the point that Marshall Islanders are asking us now to stop climate change. They cannot wait. The waves are literally coming into their houses. So then what we do on the next slide is also show a couple of graphs that illustrate this concept of climate justice. 12% of the people have caused half the carbon emissions, with most of the world's population on the other side. People who are being hurt the most and the soonest have done the least to cause the problem. Clearly, this isn't fair. So as we talk about solutions, we just remind everybody that we have to think about how consider not just solutions in general, but are they fair and just solutions? And so reminding them again, the biggest contributors to climate change should have to do more to help because they did more to cause the problem. It's even fun to act this out in a classroom and divide up some candy and say, well, 12%, you get half of the candy and everybody else gets the rest. So you can act these out in a fun way. And then what we do is we have another game called the climate justice game. Now, bear with me here. It's a little bit hard to explain, but if you can see on your screen, this is a role-playing game. So each student receives a card that details a character that they are for the duration of this game. And this slide has two characters. One is the elderly veteran, the wheelchair user, who has a carbon footprint of 2. And we've already defined the idea of carbon footprint, how much carbon dioxide you are actually contributing greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. And then we have somebody else gets a different card, a tech startup owner, carbon footprint 9, has a successful company, has a big home, all these different things. So we set up that everybody has a role in this game, and it shows both how adaptable the climate impacts people are, as well also as how much each person has actually contributed to the climate change through their climate footprint. And by the way, we also got this game from 350.org and adapted it for middle school. And I love this picture because this is a picture of our first training in June at the Sandia Mountain Nature Center. And it was just a great moment in the workshop. It's when things really began to coalesce. Everybody got outside and they were playing this game, and they started joking around and talking about, hey, how come you're not being bothered by this heat wave and everything? So it's a great testimony to how games can work with people of all ages. So once we've got everybody with a role-playing assignment, then what we do is we line them all up on a straight line, and we read a series of events that you can see, 3 of which you can see here. And characters who are affected by each event step forward. So if your character is not affected, so for example, step forward if you do not have enough basic food for yourself and your family right now. And we have characters in the story who the student will know is in that situation. So these are the people who are most vulnerable right off the bat. And then we do another scenario, we read another situation. Summer is here. Step forward if you don't have enough money to buy or fix a swamp cooler or an air conditioner. So some people are starting to move away from the line as the consequences of this heat wave progress, whereas some people have the means to get on a plane and fly someplace else, or use their air conditioning, or they don't have the financial concerns of needing extra electricity to run it. And through the course of playing this game, it's very clear that some people with minimal resources to begin with are much less able to protect themselves from the impacts of climate-induced heat. So again, we're highlighting the human impacts of this sometimes abstract concept of climate justice. And then to wrap up, we talk a little bit about individual actions, but we really stress the idea of group action. We act as a group, our individual actions will make more of a difference. And we also stress very heavily that as far from being too late to do anything, right now is absolutely the best time for us to act when we can have the most effect. This slide is followed by a whole bunch of slides showing various groups of New Mexico youth taking actions in their schools, with the Global Warming Express, with Wild Friends, Yucca, UNM Leaf students, the Semilla Project, even our Children's Trust court case, and many more. So we give various general examples of how New Mexico's kids are already acting on climate change. So,
all right. So thank you, Nancy. And we're going to finish off the formal part of our presentation in about the next 10 minutes. And then we're going to move into the Q&A. So I haven't gotten a chance to look through the chat yet, but if you have questions, feel free to be popping those into the chat, and we'll give you a chance to actually say them aloud and ask them and discuss them with us after we finish up this next section. The last portion of this curriculum is intended to be a student project, an action project, something where they're doing something tangible, either to make a difference in their community or to educate more on climate change, or whatever the case may be. So we're going to go through some of the ideas of this. So just so you know, we did originally have one project with the curriculum. We had created a letter writing project for students to write to their principal or school board or congressperson or whoever it was in power to ask them for a specific thing, such as putting solar panels on their school building roof or something like that. And that is still an option for the projects. But we've opened it up because we recognize that based on student needs, abilities, the teacher interests, the individual student interests, there's such a wide variety of options when it comes to projects related to climate change. Obviously, this is such a huge, multifaceted topic that we wanted to leave it more open-ended and allow the teacher and the students to actually select what project they want to do, or you want to do if you are a teacher, and that we'll be there to help along the way. And we encourage teachers to use your school resources that you have and whatever your culture is and the knowledge and interests of your students, also to look for opportunities for improvement. So for instance, the thing that I mentioned, if you don't have any renewable energy usage at your school, is there a way that that could be added, that, you know, a wind turbine could be added in the schoolyard, or solar panels to the roof, or, you know, that your district could possibly invest in a hybrid or electric bus at some point? Could you build a school garden? Susan Schipple, who was one of the very first teacher, I believe, that we piloted the program with, is now the APS school garden coordinator. She can help set up a school garden at any APS school or help you get it really working. Or what if students want to start a climate club if they don't have any kind of environmental club at their school? Talking Talons Youth Leadership is obviously taking that on and trying to encourage the students to be leaders that join their clubs, to make a club at their high school when they move on to high school, or to encourage peers to get involved. And we want teachers to work along with other subject teachers. So again, we hope that it'll be as multidisciplinary as you can make it. If there are other teachers interested, like during our teacher workshop, we had a theater teacher, a PE teacher, art teachers. So there are other teachers interested in teaching this topic as well. So I already mentioned the letter writing. Oh, I think Nancy, you were going to say a little bit about it though.
Yeah, just a little bit more on the letter writing. We developed these templates to help structure the project. Maybe students could be asking a city or county or state official for electric buses or for solar panels, or even just writing to say, we've been learning about climate change and what are you doing about this? So it's also a great chance to partner English teachers, social studies, or government teachers, this kind of thing. So you're reaching out across, maybe they do an art project that goes with it. So the multidisciplinary aspect of this is, again, really important.
And a note on that is we do still have that letter writing, a slideshow on it, and letter writing templates. So that is pretty much set up for teachers to use from the get-go. And then here are some of these are actually two organizations that are based in New Mexico that are doing really great climate programs and opportunities. So there's the Climate Innovation Challenge, which is through a group called CAVU, C-A-V-U, that is based out, and that stands for Climate Advocate Voces Unidas, and they're based in Santa Fe. And they have groups of students, or even individual students sign up, and it's a competition that they'll yearly pick winners and runner-ups in different categories based on their age group, based on the type of video that they make, because it's all video based. So they could make videos, like in this video, I really love this one. It's a screenshot of middle schoolers in New Mexico that were basically talking about like, oh, climate change, it's going to solve everything because, you know, what if it's too cold out? Oh, well, climate change can fix that. And it's hilarious because it's just so sarcastic. And I thought it was great comedy. And then there's other students, like there was a girl that I watched a video of in Kenya that created a whole project in her community. I think they were putting in erosion barriers to help with huge problems with erosion in her community. And she's actually a homeschooled student, but her mom got her involved in this. So it opens it up to a lot of different types of ideas, and students can come up with their own climate solutions and present them in video form. And then Wild Friends is also for all different age levels, including middle school. That is also based here in New Mexico through the UNM School of Law, University of New Mexico. And it provides hands-on learning for students across the state, where they draft actual legislation on a wildlife conservation issue or environmental issue, and then they work to pass it in the New Mexico State Legislature. And in this picture, those are students actually getting to present at the legislature. So they get to learn how the government works and be involved in civics, have a voice, and then advocate for environmental or climate issues.
And last but not least, we found a couple other projects. One is these energy patrollers you see on the left. This is from an energy patrol club in Stockton, California. I think these are younger than middle schoolers, but I love the idea. They get to wear these little uniforms and these little hats and go around and just be vigilant in reminding people to turn off their lights, turn off their computers. They were the energy patrol. So some of these jobs, maybe this is a younger thing, but you might be able to adapt this for middle school. And of course, then we've already seen some of the work from Roosevelt Middle School posters that were developed, and this would be a great project to partner with an art teacher to create impact. We've been to schools where there are lots of posters on the walls that influence not just the students in the class, but the entire school and changing the school culture. So really positive things that we can do. Next.
And we just wanted to finish up with a couple slides showing kind of the excitement of everyone coming together. So this was on that Climate Hope Teacher Workshop Day in June this past year, where we worked with 14 middle school teachers of, like I said, multiple different subjects to introduce our curriculum and do some of these activities and get them going. And they are using our curriculum throughout the school year, and we will be getting feedback from them and checking in with them more into the spring semester to learn all we can from them and how it went, and to support them in all ways that we can. And lastly, I guess I had one more slide. I think I pulled up the wrong version of the slideshow. So let me go to this one last slide. We wanted to acknowledge the people that made all of this possible. I think I have, here we go. So the Climate Education Committee has gotten smaller over time. We've been around for about 4 years now, as we mentioned. But we wanted to acknowledge people that were a huge part of it in the past in creating the original curriculum and teaching and testing it with us. And I know some of these people were on tonight or were on for a while, including all of the names listed here, and Steffi Weisberg, who's been our awesome chat moderator and posting all of our links for us. And we also have thanks for all of the teachers who originally piloted the program with us, those that are working to implement it in their classrooms this year, and absolutely everyone else who has helped support us in creating and doing this curriculum, including all of you for being here tonight and having your interest in this topic. And then lastly, we have, there we go. Lastly, we have a few quotes from some of those teachers from the climate workshop this summer, talking about loving the resources, looking forward to letting students explore alternative approaches to energy consumption. I really love that last quote. Thank you for bringing such a positive approach to such a heavy topic. That was really great feedback to hear, because that's exactly what we're trying to do with Climate Hope. And we do have our email addresses there, and you're welcome to reach out to Nancy or I directly if you have questions about our program, if you maybe aren't a classroom teacher but are interested in seeing about using it in some other way. Please share this information, the fact that this curriculum exists, with any middle school teachers that you may know that may be interested. Again, we have our teacher interest form that Steffi has been posting in the chat, and you can scan that QR code on the right, as well as we would love it if you are able and interested in donating to help us do more teacher workshops and provide more resources, like provide materials and things for students for this program, and also be able to pay teachers to get their feedback and to get their continued involvement as we continue to go forward with it. We would love any kind of donation. So if you go to that QR code or the 350newmexico.org/donate link, you can donate, and all the proceeds, I believe, for the rest of the year will go toward this project, this program. And having said that, it is now time for Q&A. So the way we thought we'd run the Q&A is if you don't want to say your question aloud, ourselves or Steffi can help us read any questions that have come in already in the chat. But we really will encourage you, if you even if you typed in your question already, we would love to hear from you directly and have a little discussion at this point, back and forth, and actually get to meet some of you or see some of your beautiful faces to find out what you want to know.
Yeah, maybe we could. Thanks, people.
All right. So let's see, just to ask Steffi or anyone who's been monitoring the chat, are there any questions that we should address first?
So there were a few, but I think Pat Lehan was one person who asked a few questions, but I don't see her now.
She's here. She's here.
But she had asked, and I think you answered a lot of the questions as they came up.
Okay, that's great.
I was curious on how much time on definitions like climate justice and injustice do you spend?
Nancy, do you want to take that one, or
Pat, do you feel like, did we talk about that enough? I think I see you.
You eventually brought all those things in. Even I was holding my breath waiting for.
There you are. Sorry.
I was holding my breath waiting for conservation emphasis too, and that eventually came in. That's a comment I didn't even post yet, but I do think we need more emphasis on conservation all over the place. That really needs to be a part of everything now. So, and thank you. A lot of people aren't able to define climate justice and when is something a climate injustice. So that was another reason I asked that about definitions, and it seems like you spread that out nicely throughout the curriculum in a less linear way. My other issue is around eco-anxiety. They say only 9% of counselors in the US are trained in how to handle eco-anxiety, and it's something that's having a significant effect on a lot of folks, including children. Something like 20 to 25% are feeling it. So I was glad to see that you have emphasis on actions, because that's one of the ways that people are able to manage their eco-anxiety is in groups, support groups, and feeling like they're not powerless and being able to take action. So thank you for the opportunity to learn about what you're doing and to make some comment. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, just to reiterate, Steffi put in the chat 3 different resources on the eco-anxiety issue, including the quote I read from Generation Dread, but they're really, I've been doing this 9 years, and the amount of resources available on that topic for children and adults have really grown. People are really taking it seriously. And so it's heartening to see that. Yeah, and it's so, so important. I mean, really, no one should teach kids the facts about climate crisis and leave it at that. That is absolutely unconscionable at this point.
And we, I don't think we talked directly about this during our talk, but we have a number of additional resources and extensions and things that we provide to the teachers, including the social and emotional resources that Nancy and talked about and stuff you shared earlier. And as new research comes about, as new resources come up, since that field is growing, since people haven't been paying close enough attention to it, we continue to let the teachers know. We email them about monthly or so with new resources. We always will add on to our resource pages also, and provide any new, like, really good quality things that will help with things like that as well.
And some of the extensions were for younger kids or older kids or, for different age groups, how you might modify these different things beyond what is just in the lessons. The next person who had a question in the chat anyway was Lucy, so I don't know if she'd like to unmute.
There she is.
Hello,
everybody.
hello, can you hear me? This is Hazel James. Everyone here, good evening. So I'm here on the Navajo Reservation, and I was working with the Newcomb schools and then Shiprock schools. And I'd like to see if we could use your curriculum in some of the classes out here. I'm just wondering how I can get to do that because I missed part of your session. I was busy doing something else. And then some of the things we're working on up here is the San Juan River Navajo farmers. And we're talking about preserving our water and irrigation and working for food justice, food sovereignty on traditional foods and all the different matters around water and water catchments and watersheds and so forth. And like Pat said, water conservation or land conservation issues. And we're more gearing our work towards that. But if there's anything of that sort, I don't do a lot of in-depth research on this stuff. So whatever you guys provide is going to be very, very helpful to what we're doing out here.
Yeah, that sounds
And I just want you to
amazing
share
work
that.
already. Yeah, thank you for sharing about that. I'd love to hear more about it. And thank you for joining. And we will have this recorded, so you could watch the portions you missed if you'd like to. But I'll also let you know how you can contact us. So we do have, I'll repost it in the chat, the Climate Hope Teacher Interest Form. So if you fill that out with all your information, I will be in touch with you and I'll share the whole curriculum with you and all the resources. And also, since it sounds like you're doing some really good work that we actually don't cover all of those topics directly in our curriculum, we might want to talk directly to even see how we might be able to work in some of the things you're already doing with our curriculum. So you're welcome to reach out to either me or Nancy or both of us directly, and we could put our email addresses in the chat as well. And yeah, we'd love to help implement it with your students out there.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, and I also have her email.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. I also just want to thank Hazel for mentioning this because it also shows I was on an amazing Zoom with some teacher who was teaching in a Midwestern Minnesota farmland belt, and the activities that they did, they had an action program too, and they were nothing like what we would do in Albuquerque. Every place has its own impacts and its own concerns and its own knowledge of the situation. And it's so important that teachers do what works for their community. So, thank you very much for bringing that up because it's really important. You need to focus on your area and your people and the impacts there. 100% excellent.
And specifically related to that, we are working to get a final version of a second version of the climate justice game that Steffi and Nancy have been working really hard on. So the one that that Nancy gave some examples from is based more in an urban environment, mostly like Albuquerque or other cities in New Mexico. But then we have a fire scenario that is based more in rural communities. So for example, something like that, you could even create your own game cards for the climate justice game that are really based in characters that fit with people in your community. And that's one way of of getting that to be really specific to where you're at.
I think Lucy was next.
Yeah, Lucy, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks guys. This is really great. I think, having the place-based curriculum is so important, and also having that problem and solution based, so it's not just all doom and gloom is something really useful that I think all of our teachers at Santa Fe Public Schools could really utilize. My question is more of the nuts and bolts from the district perspective of how do we get this approved to put in front of teachers. We have adopted standards-based grading, and so I'm curious more about where you see this fitting into the standards specifically. And you mentioned it was cross-disciplinary. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
So as far as aligning with the standards, we do have the specific NGSS and Common Core standards that we've picked out that align with each lesson, as well as some of the final projects. I've put some of that together. That's something that we've actually been discussing even more recently, as far as how can we provide teachers and districts, and it varies so much from district to district too, and everything, and school to school, what you need to justify this to your administration to get it, maybe more officially adopted. We actually were talking with someone recently in one of our meetings that was actually talking to us specifically about Santa Fe Public Schools, because most of us have been based more in Albuquerque, or I honestly have not been a classroom teacher. So we're trying to find out, how does that work? And I know that from what we're told, it tends to be more of a process with Santa Fe Public Schools of getting things kind of more officially approved at the higher level, it sounded like, in order for teachers to be able to utilize them maybe. So we'd love to talk with you more directly about that. And also that is something that we've been discussing to try to see what can we do to help this be usable in that way. And as far as multidisciplinary, some of it is built into the curriculum, some of the things we talked about, some things with the math, with the graphing and understanding data. A lot of the multidisciplinary aspects are also extensions or the projects. So we purposely picked out a variety for the projects, and we have ones that we didn't talk about tonight too. There's ones that pertain to visual art specifically, theater specifically. All of our extensions that go along with each lesson, we pulled out which subjects do these cover. So we tried to make it as easy as possible to glance through the extensions and see oh, this one's about math and science, this one's civics and history. So there's a lot of options as far as which teachers you're working with the school, or which subjects yourself are teaching. Let's see if Nancy, do you have anything to add to any of that?
Well, just to say, it's tricky, and it's part of what we're trying to do is give teachers some tools. And there's a lot of districts in the state of New Mexico, and I'm not certain that we're going to be able to make this perfect for everyone, but whatever training, and some districts are much more strict about what comes into the classroom than others. So it's really just a matter of talking with you, getting your experience of what it's like apparently in Santa Fe, and figuring it out. But we went with more of a model of training teachers and letting them figure it out, to be perfectly honest with you, than to come up with a giant 15-binder program that we had to get run through the PED, which just seemed extremely beyond our capabilities at this point, frankly. To be perfectly honest, that's the situation. But that doesn't mean, you may be doing some things and you may get some ideas from that. It may be possible to weave it in, even if it's not a giant finished program that you come in and do. We're not equipped to do that, but that doesn't mean it's not useful.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
And that's something that we, I don't know if we did stress it a lot tonight, but that we want this to be your own. During our teacher workshop this summer, we really stress that, make it your own. You don't have to do everything in order as it's prescribed. If you don't have time for all of it, or if there's certain things that more difficult to get approved to do, or whatever it may be, you can really try to make it work for you. And we're glad to do what we can on our end to try to help it work for you as well.
Yeah.
Alice Main, who works for the city of Albuquerque, mentioned that they're going to have a new greenhouse gas emission inventory in the new year, and that maybe you'd like to incorporate it into the curriculum materials.
Oh, wow. So who is it that you work for, Alice? Or what was that part of?
Yeah, hi. So I work at the city of Albuquerque. I'm in the sustainability office. And,
oh, excellent.
we're just wrapping up some final data assumptions for our greenhouse gas inventory for the metro statistical area. So that's the 4-county region. So that's going to be looking at buildings, transportation, kind of all those major sectors. And so sometimes it's nice for grounding, like what are some possible actions to know where those sources are coming from on a locally contextual sense. So that's something that I'd be more than happy to share with you guys. And I actually also had another question, and I'm totally open to taking this offline as well, but I'm curious, maybe one way to get around barriers for teachers, adopting this curriculum, but maybe there's a space for, at least for the next year or two, for me or someone on our team to come and give a presentation that is this or is like this in the classroom. Anyways, I'm just kind of brainstorming because I think you guys have done such a great job, and there could be real opportunities for some of this outreach to be supported by our office. Anyways, just brainstorming. But I know that's something that educational component is huge, and having this locally contextual information, and you guys clearly, I'm not a middle school teacher, but I know all about sustainability and the things that we can do to advance climate action. So I think that's a really cool maybe marriage of those two things. So I'd love to take this offline another time, but I'm just bravo. Thank you so much. And sorry for not having my video on. I'm just exhausted. So I'm wrapped up in my blanket eating supper. So I've been listening, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. We would love to talk to you more about that. Local data, local information from the Sustainability Office would be fabulous to be able to provide to teachers and incorporate in some way into our curriculum. We'd love to discuss more about partnering with you. I'm sure I can speak for Nancy and the others when I say that. What was I going to say? Another thing that came to mind that we could discuss is I wonder if you might be a possibility of someone that could even go into classrooms at some point, or be kind of like an expert that kids could ask questions of, because we have talked about that, kind of trying to create a short list of local people that are doing the research and doing the science, and that students could actually, reach out to or ask for data or ask questions of directly, which would be really awesome.
I don't know if it's still, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, Stephanie.
I just wanted to say that I don't know if it's still in the curriculum, but we did use the Albuquerque heat map report.
Oh, nice.
For the climate justice game.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And I think this aligns really well with some of the priorities in our office right now. So my specific role in the office is to do an update, to do strategic planning under the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant. And so on December 6th, we're really launching, in the new year, we're launching the public engagement process to that. And as you know, kids are a really important stakeholder, right? Because they're our future, the caretakers of the new world, as they say. So yeah, let's definitely chat offline and see what possibilities there are. But I think, yeah, I'd be happy to come into classrooms and share some of this information, collaborate in some way.
Because you also are doing solutions, so
you got it.
That's
yep.
great.
Exactly. Steffi, I'd like to just bump in and just point out Nell Burris is here, worked through this project for a long, long time. Nell, do you have anything you want to share or say? I don't want to put you on the spot, but just to acknowledge and appreciate all the work you've done with this.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm just appreciating where you've taken all of this. I mean, I just love the updates to the games and the graphics, and it's, it just looks beautiful, and it's so exciting to see the visuals of the teachers using it and the training you did. So this is really, and then all the connections that are being made tonight, with Hazel and Sally, all the people who are offering to collaborate and want information. That's just wonderful. So thanks to you guys for just keeping it going, keeping the faith, keeping the energy going.
Yeah, and thank you for getting a lot of these lessons going and getting started when we didn't know where to begin.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no doubt that there's a need for this. And we need to expand it and reach out and share the resources that we've developed and find more. It's exciting nationally. I've been on a number of national calls and connections and trainings, and it's happening in a lot of places. It is heartening.
I also think that teachers are, really unsung heroes. There more and more is being asked of them beyond just education. And the people I've worked with have been so wonderful and so dedicated, and they care so much about the kids that, anything that we can do to help support them is really important.
Yeah.
Because particularly in the coming years, I think kids really, need to get accurate information about what's happening and what can be done about it.
Well said.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And it is 8 o'clock. So I guess we're coming to the end. So thank you so much for these great questions and for staying on the whole time. Those of you that are here right till the end. Did anyone want to say anything else before we finish up?
Yeah, I just want to jump in and thank everyone who participated tonight. I remember when this project started, and it was daunting. I don't think I'm exaggerating, to get this and to see order out of chaos is impressive. I'm always impressed by teachers. There are a lot of heroes in the world, but my heroes are teachers. This is such a vital area, giving our young people the tools going forward into the world that they're inheriting. So thank you in particular to the three of you who led this tonight. And I get the sense that we're not quite done. So actually, it's a little open-ended. It's kind of scary, but I would think that we might, maybe in a year's time, could revisit this topic on another speaker series. I think there's a lot more here. We're clearly talking to a lot of people. The diversity tonight of attendees was impressive in all kinds of ways, but in particular geographically, so we've heard from all over this, from large parts of the state, and that's so exciting. So any last words before we?
Good night.
Yeah. Good night.
I'd like to echo Jim's thanks, and thank you so much, Nancy and Fiona and Steffi, for all the work that you put into this. It's been a long time coming, and it's an awesome result tonight.